just over half the respondents indicated that they had a dedicated revenue management function. And this provided confirmation, to me at least, that employees of many independent hotels wear multiple hats and are very busy people. The other interesting insight is that half the respondents identified that a good revenue strategy is the most important factor in improving revenue performance. But this said, about 60% said that they're falling behind in reacting to opportunities in a timely manner, and that was their biggest challenge. And then lastly, 38% of the respondents said that they provided revenue management training for their staff. So a large number of people that are actually performing the revenue management function don't have any formal training in the discipline, which is very interesting.
Absolutely fascinating, particularly in a day of age when, distribution landscape is so complicated and there's so much change in demand in the market and changing consumer behaviors, that, pricing is absolutely essential for being successful and profitable.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think there's broad recognition within the biggest in the brand sector, at least, that revenue management or commercial management is a key function. And it seems that whilst the discipline is recognized by a large portion of the independent hotels, there's still some way to go to really establishing as a core component of a hotel operation within the independent sector.
The cornerstones of revenue management are the same. So what you're looking at, this is the beauty of revenue management, is that it can be applied to different accommodation types, starting from a budget hotel to student accommodation to all the way through ultra luxury hotels. Again, the beauty of revenue management is that you don't need to occupy a niche to be successful in revenue management, because the cornerstones, the logic there is the same. However, there are some fundamental differences between sometimes the speed of execution of strategy. Bigger brands usually are fantastic at foundations, so they've got really solid knowledge on revenue management, and the training is very comprehensive. But sometimes when it comes to change management, independent hotels have a better opportunity of getting things across quicker because there's fewer hoops to jump through.
I don't want to exaggerate it. So basically we have Southwest, a couple of hotels in Cornwall and Devon and Dorset, and then we have city location. I wish to have like all over the country, but probably our Nordest hotel is Bristol. So I think this, but definitely the difference obviously between leisure and business hotels, and so why city location has a certain need, a certain kind of reaction time, dynamism. Leisure is different. So obviously the strategy should be different on that. Yeah. And also it's interesting because if you go back a couple of years, that everybody said, oh, it's London is really dynamic, and then you don't really know if you don't have any hotels in London. And obviously came pandemic, and then we had the massive staycation, and I can tell you that probably Pesto was more dynamic in 21, 22 than any London hotels in city. So that's interesting. But I think now we're getting back to the normal times than it was before COVID. But yeah, well, definitely. We really need to be quick on those periods when there was a massive demand.
Technology is really what sets you apart when it comes to reactivity, when it comes to pricing and being able to react quickly to any changes in the market, any news. I mean, sometimes things that you don't even suspect might trigger a change in the pricing. So just keeping an eye on a kind of more a global socioeconomic environment. And this is again where platforms like Ideas, for example, are very valuable, because one single person, which a lot of the time for an independent property, there's one revenue person, if even that. Sometimes it's a role that is combined with reservations. So you have a reservations and revenue manager, for example. That one person just cannot physically keep an eye on all the changes in the market. I mean, we're talking about current, modern revenue management systems change pricing many times a day. We're not even talking about, changes every day. It's many times a day that it happens. So this is where having, a very adequate tech stack, especially, is particularly important for independent hotels and smaller groups.
I think technology, and in particular, what I'll call intelligent automation is leveling the playing field for independent hotels. In the past, the technology available to some of the brands was inaccessible to the independent sector, but that's changing. And the advances that we're seeing in AI and machine learning is eliminating many of the repetitive and tactical tasks for hotels, which means that hotels are now able to function with leaner commercial teams. So that's a real advantage for an independent operator that doesn't have the capacity or the financial resources to invest in comprehensive commercial teams. So that is a distinct benefit for independent hotels. And I think we've seen that throughout the pandemic, and now as we through the recovery, that the adoption of technology in that sector is unprecedented. And this adoption consequently means that the teams are able to think more strategically and compete more effectively with the branded hotels that, as I said, have historically had larger teams. So yeah, for me, the revenue strategies remain more or less the same and probably reflect those of the branded hotels, but technology is allowing them to compete more effectively.
So looking at shorter lead times, you are right to mention that I think post-pandemic in general, hotels have seen shorter lead times with some of the markets particularly. Some markets traditionally had shorter lead times, like some of the Middle Eastern guests, for example, do prefer to book very last minute. But some markets like US tend to have longer lead time, but we have seen a bit of a combination of everything happening. I think it's really important to first of all make sure that your longer lead time offers are out there. So making sure that you are competitive and attractive for those travelers that do book with a longer lead time. Combination of longer lead time and shorter lead time is really what's important to drive in the hotel, because then you want to have base business by the time that you come to a shorter lead time, and you can start increasing those prices.
Data is the oxygen that fuels the revenue management system. Without good quality, clean data, the algorithms can't perform. That intelligent automation that I spoke about earlier can't perform optimally. So the best revenue management systems will incorporate not only historical data, but forward and future looking data and current data, and really get a good, clear picture of the market demand, and respond in real time to those changes in demand. If you are able to forecast and anticipate and understand what that demand looks like in short term, and recalculate your forecast in response to that demand, you will ultimately provide the best prices to the guests, to convert the maximum number of guests at the right price.
To be fair, at Harbour Hotels, we are just the beginning of the road, because we are in the implementation of ideas. So, but definitely what I can see is the role is changing. It's not being replaced, but you have like an additional assistant, if you like, and then you need to have a collaboration with an assistant. The assistant is helping you, which is obviously it's impossible to do in a day, to looking at 365 days in the future, looking at the room type, looking at everything by segment, and making decision, which is like thousands of decisions in a day, and it's just for one hotel. So you need to have this assistant hands on hands. You need to have a discussion with the assistant, teach them, and then learn from them, and that's how the role, because like, I don't know if it's traditional anymore. The revenue management, obviously, you do pricing, you do inventory control, but it's all your own, and then you don't really have all this complexity. So I kind of make the use of it. As I mean, Michael mentioned that oxygen, the data is the oxygen, but I think the system is our oxygen in our revenue management. It's just a change of role.
The area where I cover more when we start to get involved in hotel technology and the IT directors, they're a slightly different case insofar as when COVID hit, a lot of them went out and found roles in enterprise, in small business, effectively working outside of the hospitality. And what they found when they got there is that they left the office at 5 o'clock. They didn't get phone calls at 2 in the morning. Okay, maybe it wasn't quite as much fun as they used to have. But you know what? You can make your own fun in the evenings when you don't have to work them, and when you know you're not going to get calls at stupid o'clock to wake you up because the key cards aren't working. So getting those guys back has proved to be somewhat of a challenge. You shouldn't be trying to put an advert on LinkedIn or on any other source. You need to use a recruiter, a headhunter, hopefully me, but you still should use somebody with the requisite skills. The reason is quite simple. The people that will apply for a job, you may find the right person there, and it may be that person is going to be spot on for you, but it's a limited market. You're looking at people that are actually looking for a job. The job of a headhunter, my role, is to find people that are not actually looking. Figure out whether they are the ideal fit for the company. I do know some hotel IT departments that are moving along in the direction of actually having a couple of days a week working from home. So it has improved for hotel IT, but it will never improve for housekeeping. It will never improve for front office staff, because quite simply, by the very nature of their business, they do need to be there. I think the biggest benefit for them would be to understand that they can actually grow within the business. And it's one of the attractive things of our vertical, that you can start off in front of the hotel.
Hello, I'm Ryan Haynes, the host of Hotelier's Voice on the podcast Travel Market Life. And we've just launched our search for hoteliers who can share their stories on season 3 of Hotelier's Voice. Do you have a story to share? Have you been developing your tech stack, building out your digitalization strategies, improving the guest experience with digital tools, or just generally focusing on systems and processes internally for how the hotel operations run? We want to hear from you. Please get in contact with us either through this post or on travelmarket.life. Whether it's addressing issues with housekeeping, operations, revenue, commercial, events, MICE, hospitality, food and beverage, we want to hear, especially if there's an element of technology in it. We look forward to hearing from you. When recruiting in the UK, are you finding that it's as easy to be able to fulfill the needs for your partners, or are you actually having to have conversations with them to look at how you can best resource so you've got the right level in order to cater for the event without necessarily the guests or the delegates noticing any of these staff shortages?
Well, it wasn't just the UK that we're recruiting from. I know, for example, that our hostesses, for example, we had 700 hostesses within our team. They came from 20 different countries. So it isn't necessarily just the UK that we're recruiting in. It's all the way across the world. We have not just the companies that we have long-term relationships with. We also work with staff that enjoy working with us and want to come back when the next event is on. Putting to one side the sheer excitement and euphoria that you would associate with being part of the World Cup final, and one of the most remarkable World Cup finals. Putting that to one side, I think we have a policy where we use both extrinsic and intrinsic rewards to really engender that sort of relationship with the staff. So we pay well. I understand we pay marginally over the average or the market average. We certainly recognise and reward success and achievement, and we'll have regular hostess of the day or catering staff of the day or the week or the event or what have you, and we'll put some big prizes behind those awards and recognition. And we do try and build a very communicative environment whereby staff feel that they're aware of what's going on, their voice is heard. We're lucky that we are involved in some headline-grabbing activities and events. We're preparing now very hard for the British Grand Prix in Silverstone, for example. So there's naturally going to be an attraction for staff that work within hospitality to be involved in such blue ribbon type events. So at Match Hospitality, we're very lucky that our broad product offering encapsulates such significant events. We have developed an app which will allow for customers to access information when they're on the ground in situ, so they can find out where the latest parties are or who's playing at this particular VIP event or what have you. So information provision, of course, is now increasingly digitized, but at the point of service delivery, I think increasingly it's still going to be a sort of human resource heavy requirement.
The talent crisis is something which is really striking today, and which is not something only for hospitality or only for healthcare, which are the two industries we're talking the most about. Today, there is a huge lack of attractivity when we talk about hospitality. And so what we need to do is, in a way, to give back energy, to give back passion to these industries, to make sure that people want to do these jobs again, especially on the back of house part of the business. The vision we have for the work market is really to find the correct balance between having your own staff, regular staff, full-time people, because these people, they're super important. They're the knowledge, they're they represent the values of your company. So that's super crucial to have them. But at the same time, you need to manage some flexibility. You need to manage some unexpected events.
I think, like many operators, we as a hotel are experiencing a lot of quite short lead, large inquiries for events, for lots of people obviously having sickness and things with the end of the pandemic. That was a particular challenge for us. But I think also what we experience, like most other hotels and restaurants, is that, a lot of people are interested in doing full-time positions, or maybe, they want a lot more flexibility in what they're looking for. We work very well with Regard in as Florence just said, the 10-15% of flexibility we need of, someone sick, or, we pick up a lot more rooms in the hotel all of a sudden, to bring that extra person in to assist with breakfast service, or, to help with a last minute event in the kitchen, this kind of thing. Yeah. We use put them in events. We have bar backs quite often in the bar. We have baristas in quite a few of the outlets. We have chefs, we have food runners. It really depends on what's happening in the hotel and where the pressure is and where we need support. But you can get pretty much any position in terms of hotels, restaurants, bars, coffee shops from Regard, which is good, because then the team, the talents that come in are very skilled and very used to adapting themselves and working in different places. Obviously, they may not just work at the Barclay, they may be working in another place, and then the day after they're with us. So they're very quick at adapting to the different environments and working with the team members that we have on property. I think one thing we've learned very quickly from coming out of the pandemic is we need to move faster. We need to make it a quick process to interview and to hire. Traditionally in the past, it may have been a 3 or 4 week process, bringing in for a second interview, bringing in for a third interview. We've tried to streamline that as much as possible, because obviously, one, the demand is so high for workers, and we don't want to lose great talent. And what other benefits we can offer? Obviously, world-class training programs, mental health programs, and mental health well-being programs and things, just to make sure that actually the package we offer to our candidates is very compelling and is a market leader, as our hotels are.
Attractivity for me is composed of 3 different elements. The first one, you're right, Stephen, is the money, for sure. How much money I can make from my job. The second one is the working conditions. And from what you said, you're doing super well on this one. And the third one is my career. What am I going to learn? How can I picture myself in 10 years? And that's also something you offer. So yeah, you shouldn't have many problems trying to attract people, because that's really the 3 main things people are looking for today when they're looking for a job.
When we first started working with Regard, and it's still a usual thing with new talents, is they ring up, they introduce themselves to the manager, they check the starting time one more time, they check where they need to go to the staff entrance, they check all these details, and it just shows they're a lot more experienced, a bit more professional. They check if they need their bottle and opener and stuff, and they obviously bring themselves ready to do the shift. And they take notes during the briefings and events and things to make sure that actually they can provide the service that we're expecting to deliver. And it was a nice surprise, I can tell you, when that happened. And that kind of just shows that we're dealing with a bit more experience and a bit more awareness of the industry than maybe some of the traditional agencies would offer us.
Well, what we usually say is that we to attract people, we want to attract experiences, knowledge, skills. That's really the thing we're trying to emphasize on, to put some light on. So yeah, I mean, the quality of candidates is really, I would say, is going up especially because of this freelancing model, because they become their own brand. So they represent themselves. They're going to to visit and to work with many different businesses. They're going to absorb the culture, the knowledge, everything they can get from these businesses.